When Londoners of the 21st century think of trams in London, most would point to the tram link around Croydon in deep South London, operating since 2000. But it may surprise you to know that just a century ago, London once had the biggest tram system in all of Europe. But it's expected that you may not have ever realized that because all of them have been lost to buses over the decades, with hardly any trace of them surviving today outside museums. But the one incredible exception to this rule is this. This was the entrance to the one and only Kingsway Tramway Subway. Gosh, that's a lot of ways. It is located here on Kingsway, right at the very heart of central London, and was uniquely the only example of an underground tram system in London, and actually the entire UK for that matter, serving Londoners from 1906 through both the World Wars until 1952, and has an interesting history behind it. You see, Kingsway is one of the major roads of London, having been constructed in the early 1900s by obliterating many of the old streets and slums to make way for a new spacious wide road. But in the process, an opportunity was taken to improve London's ever-increasing tram network by including an underground subway to serve trams starting in 1906, becoming the first and only of its kind in London. This would have been surely helped by the fact that this was also the period of rapid introduction of new underground tube lines in central London. But hopping back on the trams, the 1 kilometre-long tunnel emerged at Southampton Row, right by Bloomsbury, with the trams arriving from Theobald's Road, before entering the tunnel at this rather grand entrance. The subway then continues under Kingsway before arriving at its first station at Holborn. No, not that tube station that opened in the same year, but rather the tram stop that used to be located right outside the main entrance here. And what remains of it today is this. This grilled up stairway full of leaves and rubbish is all that remains of what was once the northern entrance exit into Holborn tram station below our feet. Still there down below, just abandoned, disused, and perhaps haunted. And likewise, just a skip away was the southern entrance exit to the station, whose remains is also very much still here today, right on this traffic island. It is fun trying to walk over them all these decades later if you got the courage, and is very much worth it. But what boggles me more is the fact that at least 99% of the daily commuters here pass by these historical relics each day totally oblivious to what lies beneath their feet. Anyways, further down Kingsway, you would also walk past this another piece of fenced-off shaft that from my observance may lead to the disused tunnel below, but moving on, something I do know for sure is the fact that there was a second station as well following on at Aldwych, and it was located right here. However, disappointingly you can't see any of it today thanks to this. This is the Strand Underpass, a northbound one-way traffic tunnel that opened just a decade after the tram line's closure in 1964, and obliterated any traces of Aldwych tram stop, but can safely assure you that the northern access point into the station was located exactly at this point, whilst the southern entrance exit side was right here at today's pedestrian crossing right by the road junction. I wonder how many of these pedestrians are aware of what they would have been standing over right here was once a tram station underground. In any case, the tramway then continued by turning right and following the bends around the roads underground towards Waterloo Bridge to emerge into daylight. And around here was a third planned stop which would have been called Wellington Street, but it was cancelled when it was decided to link up with the rest of the tram network at the southern portal by the Thames, which you may expect to have been right here on Lancaster Place where the aforementioned Strand Underpass emerges back out today right by Somerset House. But this wasn't the tram's southern portal, which further continued under Waterloo Bridge and exited along Victoria Embankment right here. And this is what remains of it today. An event space simply called 8 Embankment today, but was once home to a bar that was rather oxymoronically titled the Buddha Bar. Do you see the irony here? What's lesser known though is that this was not the original portal of the subway, but instead the trams originally came out slightly to the left around here since its original opening in 1908, just by the junction with Savoy Street. Before that, for the first 2 years, the subway terminated at the aforementioned Aldwych station before it became a through tunnel opening up here under Waterloo Bridge, and then continued on both ways from here along Victoria Embankment via a triangular junction. And this is how it continued until 1937, when the Waterloo Bridge beside which the portal originally sat was decided to be rebuilt by widening the bridge significantly. And this resulted in the tunnel's portal to be relocated slightly by a few meters to the east, which is what survives today. The former tunnel leading up to the old entrance probably still exists right here behind this wall today, given they were both simultaneously seen next to each other back in the day. And also, as you can see, a little bit of grilled windows over here, right by the entrance to the Strand Underpass today. And so might a replacement right behind these doorways. Regardless, this massive height of the entrance reminds us that the trams that exited and entered here once upon a time were double-decked, which you can compare today thanks to this double-decker bus passing right past it for reference. However, what's perhaps lesser known is that the tram tunnel was originally built for single-deck trams when first opened in 1906, but had been rebuilt by 1931 to accommodate double-deck trams, which is why the tunnel appears significantly taller despite opening in the same year as many of the tube lines that are quite shorter in height. It is fantastic to see such a unique reminder of London's 20th century past, still beautifully preserved right at the heart of London, uniquely with its tracks and conduit power supplies still left in place over 70 years later. Which is why it has rightfully been Grade 2 listed by Historic England since 1998 at this portal. And the replacement, whilst convenient, cannot be compared to what travelling through this would have felt like, especially given that they were double-deckers too, just like the buses we use today. The tunnel, meanwhile, has been used for various different purposes over the years, such as for storage by the London Borough of Camden Council who own it, but also in recent years by Crossrail to help build the Elizabeth line that we know and use today. And perhaps the best use case is the fact that since 2021, we members of the ordinary public have the opportunity to get occasional chances to walk inside the tunnel and visit the abandoned Holborn station as part of the nearby London Transport Museum's Hidden London tours, which has been highly welcomed. And by the way, are you thinking the same thing that I am thinking looking at the shape of this intricate lamppost? Hopefully not. What I find rather interesting is the fact that just like the disused subway with abandoned stations at Holborn and Aldwych, the London Underground's Piccadilly line seems to exactly mirror this right next door, with its disused branch line with abandoned platforms at Holborn and Strand, later renamed to Aldwych, lasting until 1994, exactly reflecting the former tramway, whose disused remains are still present behind these doors at Holborn's eastbound Piccadilly line platform 4, leading to the abandoned platform 5 and platform 6, as well as, of course, the entire disused station still perfectly intact at Aldwych along Strand, as well as on Surrey Street, which is beautifully preserved even today. And right nearby it is another time capsule of a historic relic that I may talk about in a future video as well, so stay tuned. So that was the story behind London's and the UK's only instance of an underground tram system, still beautifully preserved at the heart of the city for you to see, but forgotten by most. It is a reminder of how our cities constantly change courses and evolve gradually, but leave behind hints of their predecessors every here and there. And of course, if you enjoyed watching my production, be sure to subscribe. Cheers.